Welcome to Dad Mode, God, Grit, and Goals. I am excited to talk to you today about the Sabbath. I've been trying to practice the Sabbath more intentionally lately. I've been learning from it at our church, and it's been an interesting adventure, so I wanted to share with you. But it's actually been throwing my schedule off, and so today's episode is a bit of a confession because I didn't plan well, and now I'm rushing to get this out. So the Sabbath, if you don't know, I'm sure you've heard of it. There's different discussions about it, but it's a commandment. And it's kind of interesting to recognize the fact that it is a commandment. It's an invitation, but it's a commandment. Fasting and prayer aren't commandments. Those are invitations. But the Sabbath is a commandment. And I've been doing fasting for health reasons because I've been learning a lot of it. And it hasn't been really much of a spiritual adventure in the fasting. But in learning about the Sabbath, it is a day that is to be set apart. And it's the seventh day. And so some people say that's Saturday. Some people say it's Sunday. I've been practicing it in a way where you just need to pick a day, because if you're a pastor or your job is on a Sunday, then you can't really practice it on that day. So I think I'm going more with the intent versus the religiosity of it. So the important thing is, if you're going to do it, you have to plan ahead. And planning ahead is probably the other topic of this episode and the importance of it. So if we read Exodus 20, verses 8 through 11, it says, "Remember the Sabbath day, keep it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work. But the seventh day is a Sabbath to the Lord your God. On it you shall not do any work, neither you nor your son or daughter, nor your male or female servant, nor your animals, nor any foreigner residing in your towns. For in 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth and the sea and all that is in them, but he rested on the seventh day. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and made it holy." And then in Deuteronomy chapter 5, verses 12 through 15, "Observe the Sabbath day, keep it holy as the Lord your God has commanded you. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is a Sabbath to the Lord your God. On it you shall not do any work, neither you nor your son nor daughter, excuse me, nor your male or female servants, nor your ox, your donkey, or any of your animals, nor any foreigners residing in your towns, so that your male and female servants may rest as you do. Remember that you were slaves in Egypt, and that the Lord your God brought you out of there with a mighty hand and an outstretched arm. Therefore, the Lord your God has commanded you to observe the Sabbath day." So I think these passages help us kind of frame the idea of the Sabbath and as being a time of rest. And we live in this go, go, go world that we're always having to, be on the go, keep a schedule. And if you're one of those driver type people, this message might be for you. If you're listening to my podcast, you're probably somebody who is trying to improve themselves. You're probably somebody who is working on getting better. And I think this is the part that says that we need to strike a balance, and we need to stop and reflect, like, why are we doing these things? I used to think of it as a rule, but I'm realizing that it's actually a blessing. It's a blessing that allows us to step away from the hustle and just connect with God. And so the Sabbath isn't about sitting back and watching football all day. And there's nothing wrong with doing that for a moment in time. but it's about connection. And so I think football is one of those things, unless you're, one who does it in a large group and it's, a big gathering and that's a part of the event. Is it really bringing us closer, or am I just in isolation sitting on the couch by myself watching the game and not talking to anybody? Like, those are two different things. And you do want to step away from the hustle. And this idea of work, I've been literally trying to figure out what's work versus what's pleasure. So I have a regular job, and I've been trying to figure out, is this podcast work? I do it because I enjoy it. There's a purpose behind my doing it. I'm working on my communication skills. I'm working on leaving a legacy of myself, an imprint of myself for my children. As I look back, I only have photos of my parents. I don't have my dad's voice. I don't have I have his intellect through some of the books that he's written, and same for my grandfather. But otherwise, they exist in my memory, and they exist in a picture. We live in a world today where you can exist in, well, I'm going to get into this later at a different episode, but we can live in an AI, which is kind of a really crazy thought, that your ancestors, there will be an AI of me. I'm actually literally building that right now so that I will exist in AI for my grandchildren. It's a very bizarre, cool thing, but I'm digressing. So this idea of work. So is this podcast a work? It's building content, and I'm working on that. So that's one of those things where I'm not sure exactly where that fits. It certainly connects me with God because I am studying the Word as I prepare for it. But here I am. I decided to keep it out on Sundays, which is oftentimes when I work on it. And so I had prepared ahead, but the episode that I wanted to do, it didn't come out the way I wanted. So I needed to redo it. And so here I am, about ready to hop on a plane and trying to get this out the door. So you got to decide what goes into the Sabbath. We resist practicing the Sabbath because we idolize time. We think it's impossible. Or we just don't know the rules. And that was kind of, I think both of those kind of hit me. Time is the most valuable thing that you have, because you can trade time for money, or you can do something else with your time. But we all, no matter how much you make, we all have the same amount of time. And so if you're someone who idolizes time, this is giving time to the Lord with family. I think that's another piece. So let's dive into Genesis for a second and understand the roots of this. So in Genesis 2, verses 2 through 3, he says, by the seventh day, God had finished the work he'd been doing. So on the seventh day, he rested from all his work. Then God blessed the seventh day and made it holy, which means set apart, because on it he rested from all the work of creating that which he had done. The Sabbath is not about adding something in. This is a really important thing. It's rather that we are taking something out so that you can enjoy God more fully. It's about rearranging your life to align with God's rhythms. It requires intention during the other 6 days. So you have to take things out on that Sabbath day, then they need to fit somewhere else. So we want to plan on having a successful Sabbath. You need to do a couple of practical things. This is kind of what I've been learning. You need to plan your tasks. You need to complete necessary work ahead of time so you're not scrambling like I am now. You need to prepare your meals in advance, so or decide that cooking together on a Sunday is good as well, if that's a family activity between your spouse and you. You need to set boundaries. You want to communicate your Sabbath plans. with certainly your family and your friends. And you want to make sure that you've got 6 days of your week that are different so that you've got one day where you can fully rest. So I'm going to be more intentional about planning my week to better observe the Sabbath. And I want to just share that with you as my accountability partners. And I would encourage you to try and align your lives with God's intended rhythms rather than the hustle of the world. So how might you rearrange your life to follow God's rhythms? Where are you gaining identity from hustling or the hurry of life? I think a lot of us are wrapped up. When you think about it, it's like, how you doing? I'm busy. And we wear it as a badge of honor. Do you have a Sabbath where you're not busy, where you're not hurried? What would it look like to truly rest and enjoy God for a full day? I think that's a really good question for you to contemplate. So I'm going to wrap up today with just some key points here. The Sabbath is a commandment. So it's tucked in between the other commandments. It's sandwiched in there. It's also a gift. And so we have to think of it as a gift. And finally, it requires preparation. You're going to have to plan out your week differently. So you got to decide what day it's going to be, who is it going to be with, what are the things that you are going to do. So as for me and my house, we're going to rest. We're going to invite our children to rest. We have adult children, so we're going to begin planning those activities a little bit more and make it a time of family. That's how we're going to do it. And which means planning a meal together, intentionally spending time together with our kids and our grandkids. And if they can make it over, great. If they can't for whatever reason, then it will still be a time of rest for my wife and I. We were joking this last weekend because we've been working on getting our house ready for some guests. We've got a wedding coming up, and one of the questions was, is painting the guest room a Sabbath activity? And this is where my wife and I were not in alignment. So this is kind of a funny thing. To me, painting a room is work. I'm like, let's just hire somebody. She's like, no, I would enjoy it. And so she decided that was restful for her. She was going to listen to praise and worship music and paint an entire room and a ceiling and get that done on a Sunday. Well, she hadn't painted a room, I think, in 20 years, and she forgot how difficult it was. And I'm like, it's not a Sabbath activity for me, so I'm going to be doing something else. And we were cool with that, and we laughed about it. But, yeah, it didn't necessarily bring us together, but it also didn't create any conflict because she viewed it as mindless work where she could do something that she really wanted to get done and be listening to her podcast messages, those things that she wanted to do while she just kind of was beautifying the house. And what did I do? I went and watched football. And didn't feel guilty about it, and neither did she. So we did something alone, but then we spent a lot of time together that day. So the other thing I like doing on the Sabbath is going to, that's a new habit, is going to the farmers markets. We've been eating a lot healthier, and so farmers markets are a good place to go get food. But yeah, that's just a fun family activity as well. So whatever that is for you, it's a commandment. It's a gift and requires preparation. So let's pray. Jesus, may we align our lives with your created order and enjoy this life that you've given us. Help us to rest in you and to see the Sabbath not as a burden, but as a beautiful opportunity to experience your presence. I thank you, Lord, that you have given us this gift. Help us to take it more seriously than we have in our past. Just as seriously as we would take not murdering somebody. Because that also is a commandment. So, Lord, I thank you for your word today. I want to encourage everyone to just share your experiences on the Sabbath. Do you practice it? Is this something new? Is it something you're going to do? I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. Some of you have been doing this for a while, and you are much more experienced at this than I am. And others, this might be an aha moment. And so I'd love to hear in either case. So thanks for listening today. We're going to wrap up early because I got to catch a plane. Hope you have a great day. Love you.